So I found this sketchbook a few days ago, and yesterday I did this front cover page just to remind myself what this sketchbook is for. So I painted these 4 paintings for an exhibition, and I feel like I'm quite tight. In this sketchbook, I want to explore a little bit looseness, and I have written down some list how to loosen up. So first idea is using a bigger brush. I have these many brushes, but I have to go for a bigger brush. This brush I don't really like as I paint. Sometimes this hair falls out. And next big brush I have is these two. I think I'm not going to paint all this page. I think I would use like a little bit squarish space. This is still too small. So I think the answer is this brush. I started drawing the still life I set up. Initially I was thinking about using photo reference, but I've been watching this oil painter YouTuber and she does still life, and that made me wanna paint still life. I'm glad I chose to do it using photo reference, and using my eye to see it is quite different. So as you can see, I struggled a lot just drawing this. I'm used to use all the space in the paper for drawing. I tried to draw the bottle because I thought it's the easiest to draw, but I underestimated how vertical the setup is and kept drawing the bottle too big. So it took 3 tries to finally draw it right. I usually start painting very watery, the palest color. You know, watercolor artists describe the 3 water ratio: water, tea, and milk. And I like to paint a few layers. I don't want to finish it just one layer, so I like to paint first layer with water consistency, second layer with tea consistency, and lastly third layer with milk consistency. So it takes a lot of time just waiting for the first and second layers to dry. I mostly paint in this order except shadow part. Shadows looks differently depending on how much light is coming in, and if I see some shadows missing in some part, I would go paint that shadow. I tend to paint realistic, but what I want to achieve the most is light and shadow, because that's what I'm drawn to. It's my interest. I don't think I can come up light and shadows with my imaginations, so I follow the real light and shadow. I like Prussian blue, but the problem is when they dry, they're totally clumble, like chunky. I really like having a dark blue already made, ready to go. It feels like it has to be freshly squeezed one. I don't think it has to be that way, but for only this Prussian blue, I feel a little bit troubled. At this point, I'm painting with the milk consistency. It's usually darkest part and the most vibrant colors. Also, I paint some casting shadows that's missing. In this case, the casting shadows of this paper. Didn't think it's gonna be this hard to control water if I have to use bigger brush. I started to feel the difficulty of using big brush at this point because where I paint is quite small part and this big brush brings too much water to paint that small part, so I made a lot of mess at this part. Oh, I don't know what more I can do. The one thing I really having a trouble with is the contrast, or how dark it should be, because it brings way too much water. Definitely looser though. But I'm trying to restrain myself to use this brush from start to end. Oh, like here's too much water. At this point, I feel like I started to overwork. So I think I'm gonna stop it here. The second idea of painting loosely is setting up time limit. This idea came from the timed figure drawing that I do sometimes. So I set up timer for 5 minutes for drawing and 15 minutes for painting. I want it to feel like when I'm doing a 2 or 3 minutes figure drawing, just enough time to draw and paint everything. I have never done this before, so I'm not sure this limited time is enough, but I went for it. So this time I did it again. drawing way too big. But this time I don't have much time to erase and start over again. I basically ignored it and kept drawing what I can. In this method, I didn't have time to do a few layers, so the way I usually do doesn't work. So I had to try putting as many as colors in one layer, and I ran out of time to paint the paint tubes. I had to stop the timer when I had to fix the camera and squeeze the paint that was gone. Other than that, I didn't stop the timer, so the lesson for me next time is squeeze paint before I start painting. This time limitation does interesting effect on me. I get quite decisive and not being afraid of making mistakes. The one thing I really don't want is not looking finished, or it completely looks like I abandoned it in the middle. I managed to fill most of the part, but 15 minutes was way too short to paint. Maybe next time I'll do 20 to 25 minutes for painting. But I like how some of part looks. The bottle opening part where it's got rim light. The bottle glass got many kinds of greens. And I like that part I didn't paint, so colors don't get mixed.